Yeah.
Okay, bon appétit. Now, during the second session, we are going to start with our musicians. In fact, Gülcan is one of my innovative teachers. She is actually teaching at a secondary school. And the others, Hasan and Emin, are supporting her. And before starting the music, I'd like to thank our supporters. I think Mert is not here, but I'd like to start with Frederick Ebert Association. They are carrying you from hotel to university, okay? Transportation, and all tea, coffee breaks, and cookies. And also the gala dinner for tonight, okay? And translations on the third day. They provide us with this kind of support. I'm thankful to them. Then we have the Peace Education Center of Boğaziçi University, and Nur Mardin is with us. I'm the representative of the Association for Continuous Improvement and Center for Schools of Quality. And also we have Doğan Reklamcılık. They prepared us three big posters. We are thankful to them. And then Prime Minister's Press and Information Office gave the Turkey books and CDs to us. And then Class Tourism is making the transportation. And Forest Tourism today will be here to explain you about the Istanbul tour, Covered Bazaar, and also Galata Tower Night. Okay, and Sansev is the Association for Opera Singers, and they will be with us on the third day to make music all together. And the last one, Mimar Sinan Fine Arts University, Conservatory, the flute department. Tomorrow, flute players, 3 ladies, will be with us at this session. Okay, thank you very much to everyone for this. And did I forget anything?
Yeah, you forgot you because it is Hayal who made it possible to have all these concerts. She did the footwork. She was the one on the ground that really brought these people together, and she has a magic touch to make us create this wonderful environment. So please.
Black Sea region, ethnical music.
Ah şellenli kadırgalar delikanlılar kaynar oynar.
With everybody? Okay. Great.
Aman otellerin salın salın gelen yar gelen yar nasıl geçiririm senele ben bir şair olsam baksan cırnağıma gitsen şöyle ben bir şair olsam sen bir bana baksan cırnağıma gitsen şöyle koyunları kuzuyla karışık, koyunları kuzuyla karışık. Siyah pençemde zıttı dolaşır. Gayrı düzen tutma benim isteğim. Kesik çayır içilir mi? Sulak su içilir mi? Bana yardan geçti yollar, yar bastıdır, geçilir mi? Aman desinler desinler, şeker yesinler. Şu kız oğlana yanlış desinler. Haydi da ben yandım, 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 yandım. Ellerin memleketinde eğlendim ben.
A few words, huh?
This is Evelin.
Yeah. Gülcan, what do you want to say? Huh?
Oh, sorry.
Teşekkürler. She thanks a lot.
Hoş geldiniz diyorum ben.
She welcomes you. Of course, she is a little bit tired after singing the songs. I'm very proud of her. A very good teacher, innovative teacher, and a very lovely musician with a wonderful voice. Do you agree with me? Okay. I also we'd like to have a photograph with you. Yeah.
Forward so we can get you in the picture.
Everyone, come up front. We're going to move behind our musicians so we can get a picture of everyone. With our musicians.
Yeah.
Come right up front. It looks so beautiful with these instruments. Move forward.
Okay, please.
Very good. Yay. Thanks, everyone. All the instruments, the dancer.
To whom? To whom we are looking at? What a great shock for us, huh? Different. Huh? And I'd like to introduce her principal. She is a porter. You see, a teacher can't come here easily because it's his weekday. Okay? So she is. Okay. We also take part. Yeah.
Here we go. Very good. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, our musicians.
Bunu Almanya'da. Ama burada
Wonderful. What a wonderful energy. Thank you so much. That music is just the inspiration we need for our next
ne
session.
istediğini sorar mısın? Bir şey.
So get yourself comfortable again.
Asking which Duchan I can buy this guitar.
We have more to come.
What store,
Evelin
what
is going
Duchan
to give
can I
you
buy?
more
Yok bir şey.
experience.
Do you want to buy? I want to buy. Ha, but not this one. What Duchan? Nereden gitar alabileceğini söylüyor.
Ha, Engin yardımcı olsun ona. Engin bir gitar.
Oh, you speak Hebrew?
No, I wasn't
Tamam.
looking at you. Actually, I have one other person who hasn't introduced himself, so I was sneaking over here to put him on the spot. This is the man that saved us at the airport.
Yay! And he is going to introduce himself because he's doing some wonderful work. He's also helping with the video. So, everyone?
No one.
No, everyone up here, we're going to do one more introduction. Maybe wait just a minute. Just a minute. We'll wait till everybody finds their seat. And then you can come right up here. And we'll move it. Uh-oh, we're all taking a break. Okay. We're collaborating group. You'll introduce yourself. Let's let them get their break and grab their...
It's easier to ride the horse in the direction it's going.
Exactly right. You didn't think you were going to get away with sneaking on. Now you have to.
That's enough.
Our first contact is
Evelyn, are you okay? Okay. You are doing the right one. No, I think oh, wait a second. They changed the input. There it is. Here. Check the input. Welcome back, everyone. Find your seat, get comfortable again. We have a really wonderful presentation for you.
Odaklanmaya bak çalışıyorum da. Odaklanma daha
Great. All right. Okay, everyone. Thank you for finding your seats. We're going to go ahead with the program. This is Evelyn's part of our program. As you know, Evelin is a global citizen. She sees the world as her home, and all of you are part of her family. And she's going to tell us about her work on humiliation theory. Evelin Lindner, give her a round of applause. Oh, I'm staying with you. I'll teach me a lesson. Oh, no. We have our, no, I'm going to forget him. We have one person that we have Evelyn. We introduce. Yes.
Salim. We want to introduce you.
Oh, I introduce you.
Come quickly.
Come quickly.
Fly. Please.
Yes. Come, come, come. You saved us at the airport. We are so grateful. But we'd like to know more about you.
It's a pleasure for me. I'm a student at this university. I'm studying at mathematics. I'm really follower of this philosophy and I'm just trying to learn from you. Thank you for all of you and I really appreciate that.
Yes, that's great. Thank you so much. Right now.
So this, welcome, welcome everybody. Welcome, welcome. I usually do not like to speak. I don't like to give lectures. I don't like to talk to people. I only like to talk with people. So I'm coming closer and closer. You see that? Because I don't like to talk to people. Therefore, I don't behind it. Also, don't have notes, because then I would get bored by myself. So, Linda always tells me that I have to say something, just to explain who we are. So therefore, I always budge, because she forces me to say something. But you have to stay with me, because it's not just my talk, it's also your talk. Or your, not talk, but introduction of who we are.
No.
So this is to welcome you and to just repeat what Linda said, collaboration, we want to be together, we want to be a family here. And one of the most important distinctions that I have to make to you is that Linda and I have two hats. We have learned over the years that it's very, very important to say that in the very beginning. The first role, the first hat that Linda and I have is that we are the developers of our network, and that we are the conveners, together with Hayal, of this conference and of all our conferences. This is one role. And then we have another role. We are also one of our researchers, but this is a very different role. So, I will have two parts in this talk, or in this presentation, this introductory talk that I try to, this introductory dialogue with you. Two parts. This is now I have the hard hat of the convener. Later on, I will take on the hat of the researcher. As soon as I take on the hat of the researcher, you do not have to believe a word I say anymore. Because then I am one of many. And there are many approaches to studying humiliation. And I have only one. And you don't have to follow me. But as long as I have the hat of a convener, please believe me. So you see, there's a big distinction there. And, this was the first important point to make. And Linda is a researcher as well. This is the next point I have to make to you. In times of change, the learners inherit the world, while the learned find themselves beautifully equipped to deal with a world that no longer exists. This is a saying that applies very much to me. I'm a learner. So I see, like Uli, he feels that he's among experts and he is the non-expert. This is not the case. We're all learners. I'm not an expert in anything. We're all learners to go into the new future. We need to build a new future. For that, I think it's very important to start with that there's no expert here. We are equipped to deal with the world of the past. If you want to build a new world, we have to learn and to be learners. If we want to build a world, create a world of more dignity, I think that we have to do two things. We have to think bigger, and we have to think more to the ground. We have to lift our eyes and see the bigger picture. This is the systemic approach that has been Meredith. We're speaking about systemic approaches. To lift our eyes, look at large systems, and then we have to go down and look into our hearts. Go into the detail and see, what do we feel? What is our situation? So I suggest that go up more and go down more. And we were talking about that this means thinking out of the box, and then we decided this morning, no, this is bad language. We have to say we have to widen the frames, the borders of the box. We want to be inside a new box, a wider box. It's higher and more down. So what our network is about is to look at the expertise of the past. Keep in mind that this is adapted to a world that created a lot of problems. The solution is often not in the old paradigm. The solution is in a new paradigm, in a vision for the future. So, I am a visionary. I try to see how must we as humankind arrange our affairs on this globe to have a worthwhile future. I like to think about that and to spell it out. How do we have to do that? And then we have to look at the steps to be taken in between. One step to be taken in between, you will be surprised to hear that, is not to have a registration fee for this conference, or for any of our conferences. This is very, very well thought through. We have discussed it many times. Why do we not take a registration fee, or a conference fee? This is one of our steps to be taken in between to a new future. I can explain that later more. So what I suggest is, as we are all learners, to take apart all the dichotomies that we are used to. This is my suggestion. Let them take apart. Is it really East versus West? I don't believe it. Is it really right versus left? Is it rich versus poor? Is it capitalism versus socialism? Is it global versus global, global versus global? No, I think we have to take apart these dichotomies. They are the dichotomies of a too narrow world. So, what I have found very helpful, I've thought for many, many years, what would be the core elements of a vision for a better and more dignified future? What would be the core elements? And I found three important core elements. Unity in diversity. I think it's an immensely important motto. And it can be illustrated or made visible through the infinity symbol or the Möbius strip. And then I think the subsidiarity principle is extremely important, and very few people know what it is. And then Satyagraha appreciation, what Linda was telling us. And Satyagraha is the terminology that Gandhi uses. Satya, truth, love, and agraha, firmness, force. It's what Linda said, appreciation is not just happily saying yes to everything or being optimistic with the rosy glasses on your nose. No, it's Satyagraha means firmness, truth. So I think these are very important aspects of a vision for a more dignified future. For those of you who don't know about the organization or our Human Dignity and Humiliation Studies Network, of whom this is the 15th conference, of those who don't know us, please note the website. This is the only thing you have to write down because everything else is on the website, so you don't have to write really. You can just listen to me and be with me. I think this is one point of dignifying. You don't need to write, just be with me. Share my lifetime, let us share our lifetime together. I always say that, when people give lectures, the lecturer stops breathing until the lecture is over and then life starts again. And the people who listen do the same. They keep their breath and hope that the lecture will be over quickly and that they can go to the coffee break then. I don't want to do that. My lifetime is too precious for that. I want to be with you. I want to share myself with you. So, therefore, you don't need to write, really. Everything is on the website. So we are a global fellowship of like-minded academics and practitioners, which is very important. Some people say, oh, I'm not an academic, or I'm not a psychologist, or I'm not a psychologist, sociologist. I can't be part of your group. No, you can. You can. An artist, a concerned citizen, a like-minded human being is part of our network. And what we do is to work for a new vision for a future. We avoid fighting against things. This is a very, very important part of our appreciative approach. We have, as Linda said, 3 activities: research, education, and intervention. Research is the academic activity, and we plan to found and create a World Dignity University, of which all universities of this planet, hopefully at one time, are part. And education is an educational activity, and intervention is our very, very creative application of the thought of dignity. And I myself, I'm now a mannequin. You see me here? This is one project of our intervention part of this activity. Here you see that I started from the thought of dignifying the cultural diversity that exists on our planet with respect to clothes. At the moment, I myself feel humiliated by the uniformity of the clothes we see when we walk around on our planet. It's basically designed in Paris, London, Milano, or New York. And I feel impoverished by this uniformity. So, since 30 years, I try to dignify fashion. I make my own clothes, this is part of it. Wherever I am, and I'm a global nomad, as you know, I have no house, no permanent address. Wherever I am, I study traditional clothes, and I try to make crossover pieces of clothes. So that I want to introduce cultural diversity, I want to dignify cultural diversity in clothes. So when you look at our website, you click on intervention, you click on World Clothes for Equal Dignity. You see my fashion line from different countries, crossover pieces of clothes. And tomorrow I will wear my tie. This is my African coat. Tomorrow I will wear my tie blouse for you. So there you see, it's starting with the thought of dignifying something, in this case clothes, but it applies to architecture, design, and everything else, music, art. And I start with the thought of dignifying something, then I make, or we make, in this case, this is made by me, but can be made by anybody. And I invite you to participate in that. Okay, Sarah, you are invited to make our music initiative. And then to make a product. This is the product. And our idea is to find a director who somehow markets this fashion line and expands it, and not for profit, but that people around the world can order copies of these clothes, and the revenue goes into our global education fund that funds doctoral students who study dignity. So you see, the start is dignity, then there is a product that expresses it, and then there is income that goes into developing the idea. Nowhere we have the aim of just maximizing profit for profit. It's all within a circle of dignification. So just as one example of this intervention activity. We have, as Linda said, about 40,000 visits from 4,000 cities, 180 countries per year of our website. The website exists since 2003. Up to now, I have been the only person to maintain it. Now we have more help. We are very glad to have Uli, who is helping us now. And this is, again, extremely important point. And Linda, could you help me to explain this?
Oh, well, I think we have been over the years thinking about an image of our network that's unique. And the best bit we have is the sense of being a tree. And Evelin and I hold the efforts to create this very strong trunk with the support of our advisory board, with the support of our board members, and the support of all of you. But we invite people to build branches on that tree with these various projects. And that's what our sort of symbol of our work is, trying to grow the work together, bring ourselves together in a strong sense of connection that allow people to develop their creative ideas in promoting dignity and efforts to end humiliation. So, Evelin, is that good?
That's right. You know, we sometimes face expectations that people think we are a normal, traditional organization who does things. But we don't go out and do fundraising to do specific projects as an organization. This is not what we do. We are a network, and Linda and I and a core group, we prepare the trunk and the roots of this tree so that you can do these projects. You can build branches on this tree. So you do this, you do these projects. And if projects are not there, then we as organization cannot do more than inviting people. If nobody can solve it, nobody will do the project. And we somehow live in this tension that we very often wish we would be able to see more activities, but that we have to be patient. We have to be patient and invite, mobilize, invite. So it's a very different way of being our network. It's not a more, a traditional organization, top-down organization. Therefore, we do not have a donate now button on our website on the first page. We do not want to be a commodity. We do not want to sell a cause to anybody. We want to invite everybody to share a cause. So it's a very different approach and a very important point to make and very difficult to explain. Now it's me, okay? Now I take off the hat of being a convener and the developer of our network. Now I tell you who I am. Is that okay? And as I said, from now on, you do not have to believe me anymore. Because I'm just one branch on the tree of our network now. Now I'm only one branch. And our tree is built or created under the motto of unity in diversity. So I'm just one part of diversity now, okay? And you can, I'm not definitory for our work for humiliation from now on. This is my father when he was young. And this is Germany. Today, this was West Germany. This was East Germany. But basically it was Middle Germany because there was a more Eastern Germany. This is the part that was Germany until 1945 and was lost to Poland after Hitler lost World War II. My father, on his horse, was on the farm of his family in Silesia. The picture was taken there. And you remember I told you about Hamelin? About 1,000 years ago, farmers had settled there. So my father is a child of a child of a child of these people who went there 1,000 years ago. And after the Second World War, more than 10 million people were forcibly displaced, expelled from this area. There were posters in the street. Tomorrow everybody has to meet, only what you can carry. You have to put the key of your house outside so that other people can move in. Breslau, or Wrocław, the city where my mother comes from, she comes from there too, is the city in the world that has shifted within a very short period, almost completely its population. Everybody left and other people moved in. So the people, the expellees, the displaced people were put on trains. My father and my mother, especially my mother, was very afraid that the train would go to Russia. So some very few people were allowed to stay in Poland. In case my parents had stayed in Poland, I would have a Polish passport. In case the train would have gone to Russia, I would have a Russian passport. In case my father's friend had managed to convince him to go to Canada, I would have a Canadian passport. But by chance, completely by chance, my parents were on a train that went there, to Hamelin. You see, this is Hamelin. This was the city I explained to you. So I was there, and just by chance I have a German passport. But I'm born in Hamelin without feeling any connection to it. When I grew up, I had the identity of here where we are not at home, but there is no home to go to. My parents are yearning for their home every day. They say Hitler has destroyed our lives, Hitler has raped us. And they say that until today, every day, 60 years. They are so traumatized that they have never lived on this planet after 1945-46. They have never had the courage to attach themselves to life on earth again. They live with God. They have become very religious. They live already after death. My father has also opposed Hitler, Nazi Germany, and he was almost shot, but somehow saved, and he lost only his left arm. So this is after the war, after the displacement, when I was born there in a little village, into this displaced family, and you see my father. Then you see the person who stands behind my biography. I love my father deeply. He is a very, very loving man. And the fact that he was so traumatized is basically what makes me deeply sad. And that has opened my empathy to the suffering of this world. So I always want to honor my father. So you see where the motivation for my work comes from. It comes from witnessing the depth of trauma that is so huge that it's not healable. And it has opened my soul for the suffering of other people on this planet. So for my doctorate on humiliation, that I started in 1996, and I was based at the University in Oslo, was to go to Somalia, and to Rwanda and Burundi, and to ask the following question. In Europe, you have the social psychological hypothesis that humiliation led to war and respect led to peace. After the First World War, through the Versailles Treaties, Germany was intentionally humiliated to make it harmless. And we all know that this backfired, because Hitler used the national humiliation narrative to start World War II. After World War II, the Marshall Plan embedded Germany as a respected member in the European family, and the result was peace. So I went to Rwanda and Burundi and Somalia, where there had been genocides, and I asked only one question. Does humiliation lead to war and genocide also today, outside of Europe? If yes, how? This was my doctorate in humiliation, called Humiliation and Armed War, Violent Conflict and Genocide. I have normally a 5 days workshop, and this is basically day number 2 now, when I explain my field work in Somalia and Rwanda. So now we are in day number 2 of our workshop, of the workshop again, okay? So I normally use Somalia to explain the effects of humiliation at the international level. I use Rwanda to explain humiliation within the community. And I found or coined the phrase that feelings of humiliation are the nuclear bomb of the emotions in Rwanda. Because there you see how cost-effective a genocide can be if you instigate feelings of humiliation in a population. Because they had the knives at home, no weapons had to be bought, but just, through radio propaganda, feelings of humiliation and fear of future humiliation was instigated. Basically, the argument was, if we don't kill all Tutsis, our former elite who have humiliated us in the past, if we don't kill them all, they will come back and humiliate us again in the future. Genocide as prevention of future humiliation. Same Hitler did. He said, if we don't kill all Jews, they will come and humiliate and dominate the world in the future. The genocide as prevention of humiliation in the future. The Hitler way. The Hitler way. So, the result of my fieldwork in Rwanda and Somalia was the following, based on European history, that dynamics of humiliation lead to rifts, and they can be more or less benign. It must not be genocide. It can also be just simple cultural difference, like East Germany versus West Germany is a cultural difference that is based now, a new cultural difference constructed on humiliation. So it can lead to the breakdown of international relations, intergroup relations, interpersonal relations, intrapersonal relations, and relations with our ecosphere. So now we come to day number 3 and 4 in our work, in my workshop, okay? And this is the most important day for me. Because I lived for 7 years in Egypt and worked as a counselor, as a psychotherapist. I was the only Western one in Cairo from 1984 to 1991. And you know this, Eunice, you know the practice of honor killing perhaps happens not just in Egypt, or it happens in many, many societies. It happens in societies where the honor of a family is central. And I remember a mother coming to me in Cairo and saying, our daughter has been raped. We have tried to cover it up, to marry her to the rapist, nothing, no way. The only thing now, I have to ask my son to kill her, to heal humiliated family honor. And in myself I felt, wow, the girl deserves help, not be killed. How, it compounds humiliation to kill her, doesn't heal it. But if I had said it like that, she, the mother, would have said, oh, you're an arrogant Western person. You are humiliating our culture. And my friends in Egypt, therefore I was talking to you, Eunice, because I hope you don't feel like them. My friends in Egypt, they are very angry with me when I tell this story. Because they say, you humiliate Egyptian culture by using this example, because it seems as if you want to blacken our reputation. And then I say, no, honor is not just used in Egypt. If we look at the United States, there is something called the Southern honor. And all the wars that the United States have started have been supported by this Southern honor. So this is going back to what I said in the beginning. Is the dichotomy West against East really a good dichotomy? No. It's perhaps honor, this kind of honor, collectivist honor, ranked honor, where the girl stands down, versus equality and dignity. This is perhaps a dichotomy that is more helpful. Because the honor motive has been very strong in the United States as well. It's not an Arab thing, it's not an Egyptian thing. So please don't feel humiliated by me using this example. Why do I use this example? Because it shows so drastically how different the definitions of humiliation can intense the feelings are, they can go until killing, how contradictory it is. You know, it's one side feels that the girl must die, and the other side feels the girl must not die. So there you see, this story to me shows the different layers of humiliation and the difficulty in finding one theory for this complex story. So this was in 2000, until the year 2000, I was sitting there. I started with my doctoral work in 1996, and still in the year 2000, I didn't know how to tell this story in a coherent way and to find some kind of theory for it. And in 2001, I felt for the first time that I had a way to explain this story in a coherent way. So this is my theory of humiliation that I try to explain to you now. Are you still with me? You're still alive? Pardon? There were many cases. It was just one case I told you, and there are many different outfalls, many ways to deal with it, many ways. It's not just one case. So you are, who feels humiliated by me now? Because, you know, I can also, by telling all this, humiliate you. And I try not to do that, but I try to be aware of it. So now comes my theory of humiliation. I think it's helpful to lift our eyes higher up, as I said in the beginning, to look at large-scale geopolitical changes. Human species started on our globe around 200,000 years ago. For 95% of our history, we were wandering to the next valley, populating our planet. Around very roughly 10,000 years ago, we had populated the planet, at least its easily accessible parts. You could not anymore wander to the next valley and find it untouched. There were other people. In anthropology, this is called circumscription. This was very roughly about 10,000 years ago. As a response, when you cannot go to the next valley, you have to stay on the place where you are and to get a living out of it. Intensification is the anthropological term. Agriculture means to get more out of the land on which you stand. As soon as agriculture was developed, a very different period of human history began, a very different one, completely different to this time. Here it is a win-win situation of resources. You always can go to the next valley. Here you can't. You cannot expand the land. It's either my land or your land. And what international relational theory says, the security dilemma started. Because when I have sown and I want to reap what I've sown in autumn, I have to guard the borders of my land against my neighbor who might take it away. Today we are here, and this theory is taken from an anthropologist, William Urey, at Harvard University, and he says we are here and we are trying to build a future that is again characterized by the win-win situation of the first 95%, namely knowledge. As soon as our livelihood is based on knowledge, it's again a win-win situation because it's expandable. But we are not yet there, we are here. So when you look at the first 95% of our history, Bradshaw Foundation has a wonderful animated illustration of that, how we started in Africa, how we then wandered, how it went, until about 10,000 years ago, when we had filled most of the easily accessible areas of our planet. So what do we have? We have basically three main periods of human history. When we look at all the 200,000 years we as Homo sapiens are on this planet, we have three main periods. The first is the first 95%, and I call it the time of pristine pride. Interestingly, there is no archaeological evidence of systematic war in that time. There are no crushed skulls with holes in. There surely were conflicts, but it seems, when we look at the archaeological evidence, that the people who lived together in small groups, 200, 250 people, since they always could wander into untouched areas, that they had rather egalitarian societal structures, and I call it the period of pristine pride. Then, about 10,000 years ago, the period of ranked honor started. Under our agriculture, under the conditions of the security dilemma, hierarchical societies were built, with strong men at the top who tried to protect their people against enemies. And you and me, and I think all of you here, we try to bring our human family into a different future, namely of caring together for our planet and our human family. So we are here now, we are with one leg still here, and we try to make the transition towards this. Equality and dignity. This is where we stand, I think, in human history. We have a unique window of opportunity here, namely the emergence of the reality and imagery of one world. And none of our forefathers has seen our blue planet from the point of view of an astronaut. None of our forefathers could see that. We can see that. We see pictures from afar. We can see our planet. We can understand it's one very tiny, very vulnerable planet in a big universe. We understand that. None of our forefathers could. So it's a new time, unprecedented historically. It's not a repetition of history. It's new, completely new, a window of opportunity. So I have different illustrations of this transition. The first 95%, pristine pride, equality, dignity. If I respect myself so much, I respect you as much if I respect equality and dignity. 10,000 years ago, a gradient was erected, a power gradient. For the past 10,000 years, almost all societies on our planet were dominator societies. Very few exceptions, very few exceptions. And it was accepted as divinely ordained, as nature's order, that higher beings presided over lower beings. Like, when you love your wife, you beat her. When you love your children, you beat them. Domestic chastisement was a duty, not a violation. This is where the girl must be killed. In the 7th century, there were two kings in France. They were called the lazy kings because they did not do the routine humiliation of their underlings. They were troubled. Les rois fainéants. So it's your duty to humiliate routinely your underlings in this system, in this context. And this was the context of the past 10,000 years, almost everywhere, and still is in many parts of the world, and still is in our heads and our feet, our hearts, because we are all socialized into that, because our language, our culture is informed by that, almost everywhere. So intra-psychologically, we are still functioning like that in many ways. This is why we meet as a network. We meet the expectation that we should be a top-down organization that does things. This is informed by the system, or this context. What we do, what we try to do, I think all of us who sit here, we try to dismantle this gradient and go back to the one line of equality and dignity. Every human, the first article of the Human Rights Declaration says, every human being is born equal in dignity and rights. And I think dignity is an overlooked term there. We speak about human rights. I believe that we need to speak more about dignity. Therefore, our network is called Human Dignity and Humiliation Studies, not human rights. Rights is more narrow. Dignity is broader. So, what did somebody like Martin Luther King do, or Gandhi do, or Mandela do? You know, they were born here, and they went to their elites, like Mandela went to the white elite, to de Klerk, and said, okay, in the past it was regarded as legitimate that the white people in South Africa are higher beings. But times are changing. It is now no longer justified to arrogate superiority. And he said, please come down to this line of equality and dignity. It's a third room, it's a new world where we join hands. Please come down. Humble yourself. Become humble. It's the line of humility. Don't cry, oh, humiliation, my privileges are taken from me, I'm a higher being, I shouldn't be humble. No, don't. Just humbly lower yourself, go down and join hands in a new world. And then Mandela went to the downtrodden and said, look, it's not nature's order, God's will that you have nothing and that you are secondary citizens. It's not. It's a violation of human rights. It's a violation of your right to be treated as equal in dignity. You have a right to feel humiliated. So this we have to be very clear, that human rights advocacy is a lesson. It's like teaching millions and millions and millions of people who formerly bowed quietly, more or less quietly, teaching them to feel humiliated and having a right to rise up, to be empowered. This is the core of the transition within which we are now at our current historical point in time. When we talk about human rights, we empower millions and millions of people. We teach them to feel humiliated. We teach them that gives them a right to rise to this line. And we have to be very, very careful with this. Very careful, because teaching people to feel humiliated is very dangerous. The case that illustrates that is one. Who perpetrated the genocide on the former elite, the Tutsi elite? Who perpetrated this genocide? The former underlings, the Hutus, who had become powerful enough to rise up, and they did not stop here. They wanted to, they tried to kill all their former masters and tried to somehow simply replace this hierarchical system. What we as human rights advocates must be very, very clear about when we teach underlings to feel humiliated, that this does not mean to go up and kill all those oppressors. It does not mean that. It means inviting them down into a new world, inclusive world. Because if I go up and I kill them all, I just continue the cycle of humiliation. And this is, I think, a very complex part of human rights advocacy. Very complex, and many people, they don't think about this, because it's easier to not look at this danger here. So the context in the first 95% of our human history was win-win, unity, and diversity. The context of the past 10,000 years, we lived in a fragmented world. We live now still in independent nation states. We have a win-lose situation. We have might is right domination. We have not unity and diversity, but uniformity and division. We have the same, as I said before, it's the same in the East and the West. We have ranked honor and unrestrained freedom that define might as right and give power to a few elites. The economic crisis is basically not much different to the past 10,000 years of dominated societies. It's just that a different group of people is now dominating. So, you know, the East and West are just following the old paradigm. The new paradigm is not yet lived anywhere, really. The new paradigm, the new future is not yet there. It's one world, it's an interdependent world, not independent nation states pitted against each other in fear of being attacked. It's a win-win situation again if we base ourselves on knowledge. It's Hayal's quality defined in unity in diversity and equality in dignity. So you see, this is you could say the East and the West, it's as bad. And where do we go to? What would be equality and dignity? What kind of image should I now choose? I was looking on the internet for a long time, and look what I chose. It's handicapped dancers. I think this expresses equality and dignity, not just for women and men, also for disabled people. On the 30th of April, we'll have a disabled person speaking to us. So I think we are at the moment living in very, very, very dangerous transitional times. And it's not only Bosnia and Herzegovina, the whole world is living in dangerous, very, very vulnerable transitional times. You know, we had 95% of pre-hierarchy, you could say, 10,000 years, the last 5% we had a culture of domination and submission. The future is not yet there. We try, you know, like we are with one leg in the past and one leg in the future. And in this transition, we have genocide, terrorism, abuse of global power vacuum, and this is made even more dangerous through double standards. If we had taken a registration fee for this conference, you could have suspected us of double standards. Why? We have observed that registration fees often are there for conveners to make a living. So you have sometimes, you know, conferences with wonderful titles, wonderful love and peace, organized by organizers who make a living by organizing these conferences. And you ask yourself, oh, why am I here? For peace and love, or that the conveners get a salary. So you see, so you say, oh, isn't here a double standard at work? So this double standard thing is extremely, extremely subversive. It undermines the integrity of people who try to make the step here. And Linda and I, we are discussing that every day almost, the necessity to avoid even the slightest suspicion that we might be into double standards, to avoid that and to preserve the integrity of our work to the utmost, to the extreme. So this is a very difficult tradition we are part of. We have traditional ranked honor, and as I said, Southern honor in the US, it's exactly the same. It's not an Eastern thing. The economic crisis, somebody, an anthropologist, says it's the outgrowth of European raiding culture. So we have the traditional, and then we have equal dignity for all. And then we have those conflicts between both camps, and then the double standard make it worse. Like using force to enforce human rights. And we have in all parts of our world, as I said, domestic chastisement transmute to domestic violence. Female genital cutting was a custom now we call it cultural violence. Before it was called segregation, now we call it apartheid. War and genocide was by Hitler called solution, now we call it war and genocide. Satyagraha is waging good conflict. Before, in the fragmented world, it's called meek appeasement. Cowed underlings, peace, the definition of peace, it's very different in both contexts. In the context of submission and domination, peace is that the underlings quietly accept submission. In the new context, a peace is dialogue between people who are equal in dignity, and so on. So we all, each single part of our culture is affected by this transition. And I think globalization, or what anthropologists call the ingathering of the human tribes, is what powers this transition. And we have to seize this force of ingathering. We have to seize it. If not, I think this historical chance will go and we will not be able to profit from it. You see, the past 10,000 years, we always had big or small communities, dominator societies. You see always men outside guarding the women in the middle, in their inside, with a strong man at the top. And the bigger units always tried to eat up the smaller ones. And everybody was afraid of each other. This was the security dilemma of the 10,000 years that lie behind us. It's always a proto-globalization, the Roman Empire, the British Empire, a kind of proto-globalization, and then it fragmented again. This was the history of the past 10,000 years. And where are we today? You see, this was 95% our history. This is the past 10,000 years of our history. Where are we today? Today we live in a global village. The fact that it's only one village is extremely positive. However, the very negative thing is that it's a very unequal global village, a very undignified, humiliating global village. I compare the situation of humankind with Titanic. This is the Titanic. This is the human family today. We have the rich here, and basically we are all part of, we are living in the luxury first floors of Titanic, and some of us are gambling in our cabins, others are enjoying life in their cabins on the first floor, and the majority of the human family is in the bottom, in the lower parts of Titanic, trying to come up. So they try to come up, and they try to prevent them of coming up, and everybody overlooks that the whole ship is sinking. This is our situation today, I think. So what is our task? Our task is to go one step further and build a world of equality and dignity. The vision for the future is trust in egalization. I have coined the word egalization to match the word globalization. Egalization is nothing but the true realization of human rights, of equality and dignity, beyond empty rhetoric, beyond double standards. So at the moment, globalization is humiliating, and we, I think, need to humanize it by egalization. Globalization humanized by egalization. So I think this is our responsibility. Many people say there has never been any other generation on this planet that has carried as much responsibility as the generation alive now, and I think this is true. We carry the responsibility of either making humiliation worse in our global village, or building a world where every human being has a chance to live a dignified life. This is our choice, I think, and we have to. So humiliation awareness is what we need. The old paradigm is the traditional paradigm, traditional traditional realpolitik is security. If you see books about security or counterterrorism, this is keeping the enemy outgroups out. This is the old context. But now we live in a new world, in an interdependent world, in a global village that is interdependent. And in this new context, there is a new realpolitik that is needed. It's not anymore security, counterterrorism, it's human security. And the insight that in an interdependent world, unilateral action no longer stays unilateral. Every action becomes a boomerang. The violence and humiliation no longer pacify, but come back in kind. We need to keep a formerly fragmented world united in a new global in-group, a global community, to tackle common challenges and give the survival of all of humankind a chance. The strategy, I think now my time is going to be over, so I'm just showing you that I was thinking through during the past days, what should we do? You know, how should we go about? What would be our strategy to reach this vision? And I jump over this now and I go to the end and remind you of core principles that I think are very important. Unity in diversity. You know, this means also transcending the dichotomy, the old dichotomy of socialism versus capitalism. Unity in diversity transcends this dichotomy, and the subsidiarity principle is a way to operationalize unity in diversity, and satyagraha appreciation is a way to realize it. I call for a moratorium on humiliation, and I thank you very, very, very much, but I also want to apologize to you because some people might feel humiliated by what I said. I always have this, it always happens, so I would like to apologize preventively to those of you who might feel like that now. And I want to thank you for giving me your time and your thoughts and your soul and your feelings and sharing this path with me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Evelin. I think you can see, I think Merle, didn't you say that you came to this work to be with a woman who walks on the edge? And this is what Evelin does. She walks on the edge and she provides the glue that holds this organization together so we can walk together toward this new world. So let's give Evelin a huge round of applause again. And ideally, we'd like to have, we might want to take some questions, but I think we're going to go move on because we are short on time. And we've had a wonderful morning. I think it's a powerful morning to get us started. And this afternoon, we're going to move into our collaborative effort to decide how we're going to use the rest of our time. I think it's, we have on the website a tentative program, but as you know, this is a collaborative organization. So we're going to use our first session in the afternoon to talk about how we're going to use the time, how we're going to break up into groups, where we want to go from here, and we have some wonderful ideas that we already know about because people have already shared their proposals with us. So we'll be working on that, and we'll explain that in the upcoming session, which will be at 1:30 back in this room. And now I'm going to turn over to Hayal, and you can talk to us about our lunch plans.
Like this, we'll leave this building, and us means our friends will help us. We'll go to the Kennedy Lodge to have our lunch. You'll love there, I believe. And then you'll have the opportunity of drinking Turkish coffee or whatever you want. And then at 1:30, we'll be here all together. Thank you very much.